managed to stop a marker uprising, which could be the key to stopping them altogether. We begin the prologue on this icy planet, June 18th, 2314. We play this prologue as another character entirely, Tim Kaufman. He's a soldier that's been sent to the planet Tau Volantis to recover a device called the Codex. Kaufman is lost in the snow and finds a wrecked ship. He's attacked by necromorphs that, yes, now have weapons, which, trust me, we'll talk about soon. He finds the Codex and rappels down the side of the mountain. At the bottom, he's confronted by General Mahad. The search for the Codex began because the device could supposedly stop an outbreak in the city.
Okay,
Mahad takes
YouTube
the device,
stream
kills
has
Kaufman,
commenced.
deletes the information on the Codex, and takes his
And I will
own
go
life.
for another like 30
The story
minutes or
jumps ahead
so.
200 years to 2514 on the
Try to
New
finish up
Horizons lunar
portrait
colony.
sketch
Isaac has been
and
living on the colony for the
get a
past
hang
3
of
years, hiding away
the
from EarthGov.
full body.
He's been living with and dating Ellie Langford from the last game. It seems that
Lightest
has
Bright says,
recently ended, though,
LOL.
because we're currently hearing a message from
Lightest
her
Bright
saying that
says,
she's moved on.
querrieoh.
Just then, Robert Norton and John Carver
How dare you
burst
come in with
telling
laughter?
Isaac that
Oh, you're
Ellie
on
needs his
YouTube.
help for
Well,
another
hello there,
mission
Light.
dealing with the markers. Before
How
he
you
can explain,
doing?
the colony is attacked
Lightest
by
Bright says,
unitologists, and the
I
group
just
has
clicked
to
on
head
an
out.
old motif and
Before we
commented
leave,
on a
we can find
VID.
a personal journal of Isaac's, detailing that he lost part of his soul on the
But a
Titan
video of
Sprawl.
mine.
Oh, and Ellie also got a replacement for her eye. The soldiers say that they're from the EarthGov's last battalion. We head out towards the escape car and unitologists attack. We have to fight them off. Yes, that's right. We're fighting human enemies in the century.
Lightest
One of
Bright
them
says,
martyrs themselves,
cause I wanted to
destroying
say
the
hi and
car
I'm on the
throwing
phone.
Isaac into a nearby building. The
Alright.
unitologists are specifically
Well, I
looking to
appreciate
kill
you
Botrix
coming
says,
and saying
probably
hi.
because he
Botrix
the
has
ability
correctly
to
joined the channel.
destroy the markers. We're forced to make our way through the sewers and back up onto the streets. Ellie was the one that thought Isaac could stop this grand plan of convergence that the unitologists were planning, but now she's gone missing. Isaac fights through many soldiers, crashes the flow
Lightest
of
Bright
unmanned
says,
transports,
I
and we
just
see a
commented
message from
querrieoh and noticed
Jacob
it was
Arthur
actual
Danek,
comments X.
the leader of the inner
Lightest
circle
Bright
of
says,
unitologists.
also screw
He claims
Botrix.
the black marker will lift
Oh,
humanity
poor
out of its
Botrix.
miserable existence. The same things that the cult has been spouting for ages. Danek has gone after EarthGov because they experimented with the markers, which the church consider holy. Isaac is eventually shot by unitologists and captured by Danek. He shows Isaac as he deactivates the security measures in the marker test lab at the center of the colony, wiping most of the settlement out. Before he shoots our protagonist in the head, Isaac escapes and falls down below. We fight off rooms of necromorphs, and eventually Norton contacts us again. Isaac tells him the extraction team is dead. Norton is going to pick up Isaac with the USM Eudora. We solve a very simple train puzzle to get the thing online. We have to run along the train, defeating
Lightest Bright says,
unitologists as we go.
ALR well
and
I'm out
eventually
and
jump
about
onto the
getting food
Eudora
so I am a
itself.
leave. See
As
ya
you can
later
probably
Rio.
tell so far, Dead Space
Food?
3 has a
And what part of the
drastically
country is
different
it an
tone
acceptable
and
time for
playstyle
food?
to the previous games.
You
We're
degenerate.
fighting human
Get
enemies.
back to your home.
Necromorphs have weapons. We're
Goodbye.
using cover in the environment. The game has gone full action, and you'll be hard-pressed to find very many actual horror moments in its entire playtime. There are a few spots here and there where it seems they snuck in some small scares or tried their hand at contributing to the atmosphere. But most of that is broken when we're in pseudo-cyberpunk cities, jumping on trains, and shooting generic soldiers. Dead Space 3 has gone so far in the other direction that it's wild. It's shocking to compare this game, which almost feels like a bland, nameless third-person action game from the early 2010s, to the balanced, interesting, and unique horror masterpiece that was Dead Space. It's a complete bastardization of the original concept of the game. I should note here that I'm not opposed to game series changing their genres throughout. This can be a way to shake up the franchise itself and keep things fresh. It can also be a huge subversion of expectations or a way to break new ground. Not very many series do this. It's not very conventional, but I don't think this was in the favor of trying something new. This was in favor of chasing trends, and you can see it all over the game. On top of the switch to a bland action game, Dead Space 3 also has a multitude of other problems with design and gameplay that we'll surely get into. The bottom line is that Dead Space 3 is barking up the wrong tree. The whole game definitely isn't just generic enemies. We will be fighting necromorphs soon, but this blatant appeal to a wider audience is honestly disrespectful to the franchise itself. I always get worried whenever I'm researching a game and see that the studio wanted to appeal to a wider audience. This isn't necessarily a bad thing, but EA's motivation here was clearly to get sales up, not to get more people playing their series, but to appeal to more people. EA would have forced the team to make whatever game they thought would sell at the time. So they took a franchise that they already had and conformed it to the trends in gaming at the time. Isaac wakes up on the Eudora with Carver, who is very blunt. His child and wife were killed by Danik, and it's obvious he wants revenge. We learn from Norton that Ellie and her team shock traveled to another planet that supposedly held the secret to stopping the markers. There's a strange new type of collectible in Dead Space 3, the Artifact. These are virtually just text logs that are given a different name. If you collect all of them, you get the flight suit and an achievement. I wish they would have done a little more with these. Making each artifact unique would have been nice. A lot of games will make each collectible have a story behind it and be a child's toy or a special jacket or something. There's only 4 types of artifacts. In the end, they're really just an incentivized text log, and it's extra odd because text logs also exist in the game. The Eudora shocks into the Tau Volantis system, but they immediately suffer damage from mines and debris around the planet. Isaac has to escape, being thrown around the ship and eventually putting a suit on. We unlock an escape pod and get the crew free, being forced to jet away from the ship, dodging mines and large debris. The pod docks itself on a ship, the CMS Roanoke, that's been mostly obliterated. As they arrive, they're getting a signal from Ellie, an SOS deep inside the ship. Isaac decides to seek it out. When Isaac gets inside, he finds a bench and we're introduced to the overhauled weapon system. Before we get too much further into the story, I'd like to talk about the combat and weapons of Dead Space 3, because there's a lot of changes to the system overall. First of all, as we've talked about before, necromorphs have weapons. I'm not really in favor of this change overall. The necromorphs that do have weapons feel cheap, generic, and bland. The first time I saw them, it just felt like they were pulled from some other franchise, one that deals primarily with zombies. Their appearance, for the most part, also removes quite a lot of the interest in design that existed in the previous games. A lot of the praise for the enemy designs in Dead Space originated from the fact that they were alien in nature, grotesque humans that had been warped, and a complete distortion of the human form. Now, not every necromorph looks like a basic human enemy, and some of the basic human ones with weapons will also transform into things like a pair of legs with spiked appendages sprouting from the top. I just think the presentation for a lot of this game is pretty generic. We also have to face human enemies now, which we talked about previously. Much of the systems have stayed pretty much the same. We still have kinesis, which will allow us to grab objects and manipulate or throw them. This is used mostly for puzzles in this game, and I didn't find much use for it in combat. Stasis, on the other hand, is basically a must-have when playing through the entirety of Dead Space 3. Enemies are much faster in this entry, and slowing them down is paramount to surviving the massive hordes of necromorphs that we'll face. Other than that, the bench system has been greatly overhauled. We no longer just place nodes into circuits to upgrade stats on our weapons. Now we have a whole crafting system at our disposal. This is actually surprisingly intricate and was one of my favorite parts of the game. Here we can craft entirely new items, either from pre-planned blueprints or by combining parts that we found out in the wild. These can create all kinds of wild combinations. We can add modifiers to each weapon to determine how much or what kind of damage it does, like acid or flame. Certain attachments can even increase the power of our stasis or recharge our health. We can also add circuits to each of our weapons to increase the damage, reload, clip, or rate of fire. Some of these can have drawbacks, though, decreasing other stats in the process.
The lock in a
Each
stacko
weapon is
says,
split into an upper and
whoa,
lower half,
whoa,
the upper
sleepness.
being the
Wouldn't be are a
primary
bad thing,
fire
just you
and the
slept,
lower
no.
half being the secondary fire.
Mm,
We can create line guns with a
I think you made
flamethrower
very
as the
little
secondary
sense
fire,
there,
or
friend.
any combination you can think of. It's actually a pretty interesting system once you get the hang of it. The only problem I found with it is that it was incredibly unintuitive. I didn't understand from the get-go how this all worked. This isn't the fault of the tutorial, because even if something walked me through the whole system, I still think it would have taken me some time to understand. The way the UI is set up, which, for the record, looks god-awful, makes everything
The lock
seem
in a
pretty
stacko says,
confusing and difficult
typing
to
and
understand
cooking is
until
hard.
you actually begin
Okay,
using
then
it.
please focus
The
on
only
one
downside
task
to
at a
this whole thing
time.
is that
Like, imagine
we're
you
downgraded
driving.
to 2 weapons in this entry instead of 4. I
The lock in a
mostly used the
stacko
plasma
says,
cutter with a
going to
secondary
sleep right
fire
now
of
is
the
not a bad
flamethrower.
idea.
This thing was pretty reliable the whole time, and being able to switch to the flamethrower in a pinch when I was overwhelmed helped out a lot. My other weapon switched out quite a bit, but was mostly a shotgun with an acid attachment that burned enemies after shooting them.
The
This
lock in a
whole
stacko
system
says,
creates a large amount of
never,
variety in
many
each
tasks
playthrough,
all at
depending
once.
on what weapons you choose to fight.
Then
off
die
the
all
Necrom
at
or
once.
Horde. The
You
only
get
negative thing I have to
overwhelmed.
say is that I just wish the system was in a better game. We can still put upgrades to our health, stasis, armor, and rig by entering a suit kiosk. This is closer to the original bench that we've become accustomed to from the first 2 games. We use resources to upgrade nodes, increasing our health, armor, or different attributes dealing with our kinesis or stasis. We can switch suits in this entry, but
The
they're
lock in a
strictly
stacko says,
cosmetic, not
new.
providing the attributes that they did in previous games. We make our way through the ship and eventually find the generator room. The SOS is coming from right above, but we have to activate the machine itself first. We have to use kinesis to interact with the machine on 3 sides, all while dealing with enemies rushing at us. Upstairs, we reunite with Ellie and Norton, only to realize they're in a relationship. We also meet Santos and Buckle, who are a part of Ellie's team. Ellie says that the admiral of the ship had written marker scrawls all over her walls, and she thinks the answer to this situation is in her cabin. Ellie calls shortly after, and Isaac confronts her about her relationship with Norton. He objects, but he doesn't have a choice. He has to work with them. We enter another room where we have to complete the same generator puzzle as before, but now with tentacles involved. There's a few different hacking puzzles in Dead Space 3. I guess they were trying to diversify their electronics interface. The first one we encounter sees us having to move either analog stick to different spots of the board and holding the triggers to activate circuits in time. It's a small upgrade in puzzle variety, but nothing that I have too many feelings about. Isaac arrives at the Admiral's cabin and meets up with Carver, but Isaac gets lost in the scrawlings.
Ellie, Carver, reach the Admiral's quarters. Isaac's.
Turn it off.
Hey, Isaac!
Turn it
Isaac? Carver, what's going on?
Turn it off.
Isaac!
Turn
Hey!
it off. Turn it off.
Hey!
What is it? What's going on?
Nothing. Everything's fine. Everything's fine. Ellie, the Admiral was obsessed with making a key.
A key to what?
Hey! A key to what?
Some sort of alien device.
The Admiral discovered a key to a device that could control the markers. Ellie thinks that Tau Volantis is the marker homeworld and wants to regroup in the control room. Norton wants to leave, but Ellie protests, wanting to head to Tau Volantis. We encounter Ellie again, and she's found a maintenance shuttle that could get them off the ship. Norton contacts Isaac to try and get him on his side, to try and convince the team to leave the system. Isaac finds the small maintenance shuttle that allows him to travel quickly to different parts of the system. This introduces a new concept to the Dead Space world, a pseudo-open world design. We'll see some results of this new design later, but we do have a certain control over where we go in the game, at least for the beginning portion of it. We get our first side quest here, one of 10 in total, 3 of which are relegated to co-op, and 7 of which can be done solo. These side missions are not a terrible idea overall, especially for an action
The lock in a
game,
stacko
but
says,
their execution is
BRB.
pretty poor. For me to talk
Mo.
about the side missions, I first have to talk about the way that Dead Space 3 handles enemies. One of the worst parts of Dead Space 3 was how it handled enemy encounters. They take a ridiculous amount of time. Especially large groups of enemies will see us standing in a spot, defeating tons of waves, and then waiting endlessly for more to trickle in. The game just throws waves and waves of necromorphs at us. We might even think the battle is over at specific points, but most of the time, we're wrong. There are more enemies that are going to come through the vents, the windows, the maintenance shafts. Most large combat encounters see us standing at one end of the room waiting for more enemies to come at us, defeating those, and waiting for more. It's a ridiculous amount of enemies, and I'm honestly not sure why they upped the amount this much. Because the variety in enemy types hasn't really increased, it really makes each enemy type feel generic and overused. We see the same enemies so many times, even in each area. They get tired and trite. It's an incredible overusage of the necromorphs, and before, I never thought I could get tired of these enemy designs, but here we are. One other nitpick that I have about the combat system, now that we're on that subject, is that the ammo has been incredibly simplified. No longer is there separate ammo for each weapon in the game. Every type of ammo that we pick up is just called ammo clip by the game. This ammo works for all weapons across the board. I'm sure this was a lazy way of making ammunition work with their new weapon crafting system, but they definitely could have separated ammo into different types, considering there's only a certain amount of cores that you can use for your weapons, determining what type of ammunition they would fire. It's just a really lazy way of simplifying the game overall, and is a significant downgrade in my opinion. Now that we've established how enemy encounters, especially large ones, are conducted, we can talk about side quests. Side quests are pretty formulaic. You usually get a key or some sort of text log that directs you to a place that holds some sort of cache. This means extra ammunition or upgrade materials. Entering this area will see us finding most of this side story through text logs or audio communications, and it's generally the same thing across the board. Some sort of organization has been infiltrated by the necromorphs, and they left behind equipment that we can salvage. We make our way through the area and eventually have to fight off waves and waves of enemies before getting it.
Botrix
The only reason I
says,
brought up the generic
YouTube
way
chat
that the
check.
game handles enemy waves before is because side quests are where it's at its worst. These final rooms before we get our loot is most of the time where we're inundated with waves and waves of the same enemies over and over, just causing us to shoot and shoot repeatedly, standing in the same corner for 10 minutes until we can get our reward. The whole thing feels very hollow and uninspired. We eventually head onto the Terra Nova, a derelict ship that contains a shuttle. Isaac tries to retrieve the shuttle because it can take them down to the planet's surface. Isaac locates the shuttle inside the ship. It's in the aft station. While traversing the station, we find our first scavenger pod. These are little tools that we can place around different areas to scrounge up resources for us. They can only be placed in certain spots, though. We'll hear an audio cue when heading through an area and be able to place the bot. After a while, we can pick the bot back up at the bench and get some resources from it, which allows us to craft more weapons, items, or upgrades for our suit. I didn't really like this addition that much. It felt odd and out of place in a Dead Space game. I don't mind the crafting system, but I'm not sure why the focus was on resource collecting while I'm supposed to be saving the world. We have to complete a simple puzzle to get the tram back into the ship. We encounter our first hunter, another version of the ubermorph from the second game, or the hunter from the first game. These enemies regenerate limbs, and again we have to deal with them by cutting off their appendages and hitting them with stasis so that we can get away. We eventually escape the thing and get the tram working so that we can find the shuttle on the ship. The shuttle isn't in flying condition though, and we need to take it back to the repair bay. First, we have to make a remote relay. We have to find multiple pieces for the relay and craft it using a bench. Unfortunately, the ship is out of fuel, so we have to head to the refueling station. Here, Isaac fuels the ship, but Ellie accidentally started the launch sequence, and we have to get out before we're burned to death. On top of that, we have to get the shuttle bay doors open before the shuttle itself launches. Some gas canisters get caught in the gears for the shuttle door, and we have to use a turret to blow them up while also mowing down waves of necromorphs. The thing explodes and we're spit out of the ship, but the shuttle has made it out and is heading to the repair bay. The shuttle is missing its engine, but luckily we find a new one from wreckage floating out in space. We have to find 3 flight recorders as well from satellites floating in the wreckage of the Terra Nova. This lets us craft a nav module for the shuttle itself. Norton still wants to take the shuttle and leave, but Ellie is convinced that they can stop the markers on the planet below. Isaac makes his way back to the shuttle. He tells Ellie that they have to leave now. We have to pilot the ship through space, shooting mines out of the air while avoiding debris. There's so many moments like this in Dead Space 3, and it really overall feels more like a blockbuster action movie than a horror game. Like I said in my video about Dead Space, one of my only issues with the game was the turret sections, and this game feels like it has so many of its own version of turret sections. The group is forced to crash land on the planet after making contact with too much debris. Isaac wakes up in the wreckage of the ship, separated from the group. We have a new meter to worry about on the planet, our body temperature. I thought this was a neat little mechanic that I actually appreciated and felt more like a survival horror mechanic. Our temperature will drop when walking in the snow, but we can raise it by getting close to the fires burning in the snow. If we let it get to 0, we freeze to death. I thought this mechanic was an interesting addition, but it's swiped away from us pretty soon after this. We get an upgraded suit that's made for the cold weather, and we just don't have to deal with it anymore. Isaac is tossed down the mountain, but can't seem to get in contact with Ellie over comms. We traverse through the cold and eventually find an old comms station, but we still can't reach Ellie. We get inside a building to find Buckle, who is freezing to death. He said the rest of the group got snowsuits, but he couldn't find another. Just then, he succumbs to the cold. We explore the station and get a suit that resists the cold, removing any trace of that cold mechanic for the rest of the game. We find a trail of flares that Ellie and her crew left, and following them leads us to Carver atop a balcony. Before we can rendezvous to him, he gets attacked by necromorphs. Ellie and her crew are alive, but Isaac has to get to them. We encounter the Snow Beast, a new necromorph that will fight multiple times over the course of the game. I really hate this boss. I think it's poorly designed, and I'll tell you why. This is really the only time in the whole game that I felt it necessary to use the new roll feature that Dead Space 3 introduces. The Dead Space series was never one that really needed a roll function, but this boss will rush us, so we have to use it. The boss itself is pretty simple. It has 3 tentacles on its back, which we have to sever to reveal pods that we can then damage. We have to destroy the 3 pods it reveals by severing its tentacles 3 times. It's not a very complex boss overall, but boy, its attacks are insane. This boss really only has one attack, to rush at Isaac and knock him down. You'd think that this would follow some sort of pattern, but it really doesn't. Sometimes the boss will attack once in between you dismembering its tentacles. Sometimes it'll attack you 3 times in a row while you're still down, completely draining your health. It's wildly unpredictable, and I don't think it's to add challenge or complexity to the fight. I think it's purely poor design. On top of that, the tentacles on the left and right of the boss can't be attacked half the time because the creature's front legs are in the way. You can't really get around the boss to attack these side tentacles, and you also can't attack the tentacles after dodging a rush attack because its tentacles are put away when it rushes you. You just have to keep firing and hope the tentacles peek out and you get lucky. I want to be clear here, this boss isn't difficult, it's just frustrating. There's a large difference between the two. You know when a boss is frustrating when you can actively feel that you aren't the reason you're getting hit, but the game itself is the reason. Eventually we defeat it and it runs away. We rendezvous with the team and Ellie hugs Isaac, which clearly Norton isn't happy with. Santos thinks she's found the machine that they're looking for. There's a signal that's coming from the other end of the complex that can help them get to the machine itself. This whole game just feels really odd. There's something I can't quite place, but everything just feels off. It's almost like they don't understand
this is
why
where we're
people
gonna
were
stop for
interested
the
in Dead
day.
Space in the
I
first
don't
place. The game
think
just
that will
feels
become
hollow, and
suddenly
we're
much
seeing
more
the same
productive.
characters. We're seeing
And I
the
think I
same
did
enemies. We're
quite a lot.
seeing markers, but it just doesn't feel
I mean,
like
it's not like
Dead
it's the most
Space.
revolutionary
Probably because
character,
it
but
isn't. This is
hey,
some weird
it
version
drew
of Dead Space that EA thought would sell more
despite
copies.
difficulty,
It's times like these when I think back to that interview with
you
Glenn Schofield.
sketch of the
Listening
portrait,
to him talk about the first game like it was his
sketch
baby,
of
a
full body.
masterpiece that he spent his life working towards, his
The
shining
Lockinestaco
moment.
says,
And now
"You did a
it's
ton."
this, some hollow franchise.
For the
that's
next
being
stream, I will be
propped up
returning
by
to adopt
EA
the
to
number
try and figure out
1
how to make it profitable, which is
and
strange
finishing
because
the
Dead
art.
Space was never profitable in the first place. Outside, Danik
Fuck
and the
with these
unitologists
eyelashes.
arrive and begin to
Yeah,
attack
no,
Isaac
yeah,
and
no.
the group.
My eyelashes are
The
always
Lockinestaco
annoying me.
Finds the
says,
signal, which turns
"The
out
return
to be a
tour."
giant
Basically.
frozen necromorph. It emits signals which can be traced back to the machine. We eventually thaw the
good
thing
night.
by activating machines around it.
I'm getting
Santos finds
myself
blueprint
like
for
a good
probe
7
gun
hours of
aiming to
sleep
trace
tonight.
the
No
signals
regrets.
to the machine. We gather the parts for the probe gun and
hope
eventually
everyone
face the
lives
snow
well.
beast
The Lochinus Daco
that runs
says,
away once more when
"Good
we
night."
defeat it. We eventually craft the probe gun.
And I
take a
could feel like a
cage that
second wind
transports us
coming on, but
inside of the
I
frozen
shouldn't.
beast. Here we
I
have
don't
to
know.
follow a signal and shoot probes into different parts of the
Bye-bye.
Nexus. This, of